Welcome back. Well, as many parents will attest, raising a child these days seems more complicated than ever. Children's lives are increasingly ruled by technology, and the more they're plugged in, the harder it can be to switch off. Research shows teens spend 20% of their day glued to their devices, and experts are warning it's having a huge impact on their mental health. In Australia, 1 in 4 young people suffer from a mental health condition. And so it begs the question, where are we going wrong? Why are so many kids experiencing anxiety? And how can we raise our children to be happy and resilient? Well, a few weeks ago, we had a huge reaction from you on this very topic. And for today's agenda, I'm pleased to welcome back Hugh van Cuylenburg from the Resilience Project. Hugh, hello.
Hey, Georgie, how are you doing?
Really well. Great to have you back, and thank you.
Pleasure.
We have been inundated with people with follow-up questions after we had you on a couple of weeks ago, and we will get to those questions in just a minute. But firstly, I'm thinking good mental health ultimately begins in the home, in terms of how we treat each other, the behaviours the children see, the relationships we forge. So I'm wondering, as parents, where are we going wrong on that front?
Oh, that's a huge question. Modelling is so important. We are the most important people in our child's lives by so far. It's not funny. We are everything to them. And we need to be modelling the correct behaviour. So one of the big issues we have at the moment, as we discussed last time, was phone usage. And here we are saying to our kids, get off your phone, while we're sending an email, you know, at the same time. It doesn't work like that. We need to be seeing the correct, we need to be modelling the right behaviours to our kids.
They're watching everything.
They're watching everything, yeah. Something that...
and they're watching when we don't think they're watching.
Yeah, well, I mean, every time something happens, our kids look to us to see how we respond emotionally, and they're looking at our faces to learn what faces they should be making and what emotions. And but so often when something happens and they look at us and we're staring at our screen, they're not getting the feedback that they actually need.
From your experience, do you think that is ultimately why they're struggling, why so many are experiencing anxiety?
Look, I think every generation has had their issues, and every generation's had their challenges growing up. But I do think this is the big challenge that this generation is facing. Absolutely.
You've broken down the pursuit for resilience to a pretty simple formula, that being gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. Just quickly elaborate on those again for us and why you think they are key. Yeah,
of course. So gratitude, very simply, it's the ability to pay attention to what you've got, not to worry about what you don't have, because too many people in Australia live by an if and then model of happiness. If I buy this, then I feel happy. If my kids get into this uni course, then I feel happy, whatever it is. Gratitude's when you pay attention to what you've got. We've got so much here in Australia. We need to pay attention to it. Unfortunately, we're not good at it because we live by this, it's called the negativity bias, but in Australia, we're 7 times more likely to notice a negative than a positive. So we're very good at paying attention to the stuff that we don't have that we wish we had.
7 times more likely to notice a negative than a positive. It's called the negativity bias, which is quite fascinating, really. The second one is empathy. Empathy is when you feel what someone else feels. The neuroscience behind kindness is extraordinary. You do something nice for someone, your brain releases a hormone called oxytocin that makes you feel happy. And the third one is a buzzword at the moment, it's mindfulness. It's really good for the viewers to pay attention to the acronym GEM if you want to remember: gratitude, empathy, mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to be calm and to be present. And just to enjoy the moment as opposed to worrying about the past or the future.
Yeah, because we're so good at worrying about an email that came in during the day. We're there with our kids when we get home from work, but we're not really there because we're stressing about something that happened at work, or we're concentrating on, we're worrying about a meeting that's coming up tomorrow or something. We need to be better. And this comes back to modelling that behaviour for your kids. Present parenting will hopefully result in a present child. After we chatted
last time, I made a point of going for a walk without a phone, without anything in my ears, and just taking we're just taking in the beautiful landscape and the sounds of nature. And I can't tell you, it really was wonderful.
It's very calming, isn't it? It's very calming, but we don't do it because we're just so connected these days. Yeah. When you look at the things that we have on our phone, our calendar, it might be our banking stuff, it could be whatever it is, we're so reliant on our phone for emails. Everything's there, so we feel like when we leave the house we always go, have I got my phone? That's a habit we need to sort of break. You don't have to have your phone everywhere you go. In fact, it's one of the best ways to try and break your habit is to actually leave it at home and go places without it. Yeah, it is. It's so liberating. Yeah. You've been kind enough to agree to answer to some of our viewer questions, and we're going to kick off with Maggie Patterson. This is what she's had to say.
You said that practicing gratitude's important, but how do you actually teach kids to be grateful?
It's a good question, isn't it?
It's a beauty. I was worried about that. After the last time I was on, I spoke about gratitude, but didn't actually say how to practice it. I'll tell you the best example of gratitude I've got. It's when the school I spoke about when I was on last time in India. And it was for those of you who didn't see it last time, the viewers who didn't see it, I was living in a little village that had no running water, no electricity. So the school I was teaching at had a playground, and the first lunchtime the kids said to me, hey sir, you should come and see the playground. And I said, I'd love to see your playground. And they walked me over to the play equipment, which you can see on the screen now, I believe. And they stood in front of the play equipment and they pointed over their shoulders and they said, have a look. Now, I didn't look at their faces. I actually looked at the equipment. So I assumed they were saying to me, look how bad this is. All I've got's broken swings for 150 kids and a seesaw. But then I looked at their faces and I realised something. These kids are actually saying, hey, sir, and they're pointing over their shoulders, they're saying, check this out. They were saying, how good is this? Yeah. That's gratitude when you pay attention to what you've actually got, not worry about what you don't have. So how do you actually practice gratitude? That's the really big question. One of the kids in India, actually, he taught me the most incredible way to do it. I'm pretty sure he hadn't read the research on this, but this is how he practiced gratitude. Whenever he saw something he was grateful for, he stopped and he pointed to it. And he tried to say the word this. Now, English was his third language, so of course it was going to be hard for him, but he would say, that's him there. He would say the word, he would say this and not this. And I'd say, oh, do you mean this? And he'd say, yes, this. And I'd say, no, this. And he'd say, yes, this.
This.
And I'd say, put your tongue between your teeth, you push the air through and you make the noise, the. And he would say, the. And I'd go, there you go, this. And he would say, this. And I'd go, that'll do. Anyway, whenever he saw something he was grateful for, he stopped and he pointed to it and he said this. For example, his shoes. Yeah. Putting his shoelaces on, putting his shoes on. Sir, this. What he was saying was, how good is this? I got shoes on my feet.
Tell us quickly when he grew out of the shoes.
Oh, so yeah, well, he didn't have much money. We had no money, so he would cut the end of his shoes off. You know, his toes are hanging out the end of his shoes. And he's saying, sir, this. Lots of the kids here don't have shoes, but I do. Yeah. Having lunch, you know, we would feed him rice at lunchtime because they couldn't afford to bring lunch to school. Hey, sir, this. And he's pointing to his rice saying, how lucky am I? Having a good time with his friends. Sir, this person.
There you go.
He's saying, how lucky am I? So I'm not expecting everyone to run around saying this everywhere like this little boy did, but the purest way to practice gratitude, the best way to practice gratitude is every night before you go to bed, in a notepad next to your bed, in a journal next to your bed, write down 3 things that went well for you during the day. Not 3 unbelievable things that took place, not 3 things you're grateful for. What are 3 things that went well for me today?
3 things that went well.
Yeah, and just write them on the shower screen door, whatever it is. Yeah. Maybe even for parents out there who are thinking, there's no way my kids will do this. When you pick them up from school, don't say what happened at school today. Say what went well for you at school today. What went well to you. Yeah, because it starts to change the way that you, after 3 weeks, you start to become someone who's more likely to notice a positive than a negative. Yeah. And after you know, I think it's about 3 or 4 months of doing this, things like anxiety will start to decrease. Amazing things like that.
We're starting that tonight in our family, by the way. Let's move on to another viewer question. Tonya Ramsey has sent this in.
I feel like I'm always running around after my kids. So the question I have is, are we actually doing too much for our kids these days?
I reckon a lot of parents feel this.
That's a wonderful, wonderful question. I'm so happy to be asked that. It comes from a very loving place, but we are doing way too much for our kids at the moment. This generation of parents, of which I'm one, so I'm not judging anyone else, we are doing way too much. We are wrapping our kids in cotton wool and we're making sure nothing goes wrong for them. In fact, we're going one step further. We're actually fighting their battles for them as well now. Kids need to experience failure. They need to experience adversity. If they're not experiencing these things, we can't expect them to be resilient. I'll give you, I mean, everyone out there who's sort of my age and a bit older will know this. When I was at school, and like anyone else watching, if I got in trouble at school, I would think, oh gosh, now I've got to go home and deal with mum and dad. And I'd go home to mum and dad and they would back the teacher up 100% of the time. And I would say things like, no, mum, it's not fair because this is, no, because that happened. And mum would say, no, sorry, life's unfair. You need to deal with it. And she was right, because when I left school, things happened to me that were unfair. But because I dealt with them at school myself, I was okay when I finished school. What I hear now from parents all the time is, well, from teachers are saying all the time, if I tell a child off or if we do something, we can expect an email from a parent the next day, or we can expect the parents to turn up to the school and say, excuse me, why has this happened like this?
So parents have to back off.
It doesn't work. It doesn't. We need to back our teachers in more. They are highly trained. They are highly skilled. We got to back them in more. When I get my tax done halfway through the year, I don't turn up and say, hey, by the way, I think you should do my tax like this. It's not my area of expertise, so I'll leave it alone. We've got to give teachers the same respect. And you know what? If your teacher does something that's a little bit unfair for your child, well, it's going to be good for them in the long run because we are imperfect as humans. That's what makes us... Everyone's imperfect. We make mistakes. Kids need to learn that we all make mistakes and it's okay for them to make mistakes.
And they need to experience failure and adversity.
Yeah, and can I say very quickly on this, for those of you who have kids are on the spectrum, just a quick message, your life is about fighting battles for them.
Of
so
course.
I'm not saying that's for if you have a child on the spectrum, you need to fight battles for them to make their life as normal as possible.
Of course. Let's go to Andrew Carter now, who's got a question about empathy and kindness.
Sometimes teenagers aren't kind. How do we make them kinder?
It's true. We can be unkind as teenagers, can't we? In fact, brutal.
Yeah, I love that question as well. This comes back to modelling. I've said it before, but we are the most important things in our kids' lives, and sometimes we don't feel like it. And I'm sure, you know, my son's 20 months old, so I'm a long way off this, but I'm sure with teenagers, sometimes you don't feel like it, but you need to understand you are the most important person in your child's life by so far. It's ridiculous. You are everything to them. So to model kindness is really important. When your kid, well, all the time, when your kid's around you, whatever it is, be someone who lets people into traffic, be someone who holds a door open for someone, be someone who shouts someone a coffee, be someone who offers up really genuine, authentic compliments. I mean, as a family, if you know someone who's struggling, have a chat as a family and say, hey, what can we do for this person? Is there something we can do to help this person out? Get your kids to actually do it. But by modelling these behaviours, when the question was about teenagers, the kids will come back to you. I mean, they'll come back. We were, my mates from school, there's a group of us, about 6 or 7 of us, all around the same age, obviously, at school together. And we always used to laugh about our dads and we'd imitate our dads and make jokes about our dads. And it was probably our favourite source of humour, to be honest.
They are good fodder dads.
They really are. But we've got our 20-year reunion coming up this year, and we're all 38, and we were having dinner the other night. And we're all going around in a circle, just going, every single one of us has become our dad. So eventually it does we've all become our dad. So we come back to these values that are modelled around the home. So it's so important that we really demonstrate to kids, the values that we think. I'll tell you a lovely thing you can do. And Penny and I, my partner and I, have been doing this. We had a chat the other day, and I think one thing you can do as parents is you can think, well, what are the 2 words? Or you can maybe pick 3 words, but we've gone 2. What are 2 words I'd love people to describe my child as when they're an adult? How would I love people to describe my child? And Penny came up with Penny said, for me, I'd like our son Benji I want him to be passionate, I want him to be kind. And I just see her modelling that all the time. I think mine were kind and humble, and so and it's only 20 months, but if you decide to make decisions around those, whatever values you choose for your child, I think it's a really powerful way of bringing them up.
I've got one last question, because sadly, yet again, we're out of time.
Yeah.
But with the mobile phone, I know certainly at the stage I'm at with the age of my kids at 11 and 13, it is a problem that so many parents are experiencing. The genie's out of the bottle. We can't go back. But just some quick advice on how we can better deal with that.
Yeah, OK. So I could speak about this for a day, but it's so important to understand that if you feel like you're getting down on yourself because you're always on your device, it's important to understand that it's not your fault. The apps that sit on your phone, a lot of them, the really big social media ones, have been designed to be addictive. A lot of money goes into making them addictive. And they're using all types of tricks, the same tricks that poker machines will use, the slot machines will use to make us addictive. So we need to acknowledge that and not be hard on ourselves. Look, I'll give you 3 bits of advice I think are really good. All notifications off. You don't need notifications on your phone. Notifications are there as a trick to suck you back into the app. Right now, we don't even really choose. It's not up to us when we check our phones. Our phone tells us when to check our phone. It beeps, it vibrates, and bang, we grab it straight away. It doesn't work like that. It needs to be the other way around. We should be deciding. So if you turn notifications off, all notifications off, no one can really reach you at a time when you don't want to. So just turn them off. So go to settings and you know what? Your kids will tell you how to do it. That'll be fine. Go to settings and you can turn them off there. So notifications off. The second one is this: rearrange your home screen. Only have apps on your home screen that are not addictive and that make you feel good. There are some fantastic apps out there. Right now, everyone covers their home screen with the apps they're most likely to check. The problem is they're the ones that we're kind of addicted to. So out of sight, out of mind. Put them 5 or 6 screens across. Delete Facebook from your phone. They're the masters at sucking you back in. Don't have it on your phone. Other social media apps, just chuck them 5 or 6 screens across on your home screen. You should only have really 3 or 4 apps on it, really, the ones that you check all the time. Notifications off. And then every time you pick up your phone, there's nothing there for you. The urge slowly fades over time to keep grabbing your phone. And the third one I'd say is there's a wonderful app, I realise the irony here, but there's a wonderful app you should get called Moment. And Moment actually, at the end of the day, it gives you a rundown of your phone usage, what apps you've been using, or how long you've been on your phone for the day, how many times you've picked it up. It's confronting at first, but you get competitive with yourself and you think, oh, I need to beat yesterday's. I picked it up 44 times today. I've got to be less than whatever it is. So.
Yeah, Moment.
Yeah.
And there's another wonderful app called the Resilience Project, Hugh van Cuylenburg, which I would strongly encourage everyone to download. It is always such a joy to have you in. I went and, as you know, heard you speak last night in Sydney. You could have heard a pin drop. You absolutely...
It was a lovely night, wasn't it?
It was an extraordinary... You were an extraordinary speaker. And I know you're on a circuit, a very busy circuit all around the country, and you're really making a difference. So congratulations.
Thanks,
Come
Georgie.
back soon.
I promise I will. Thank you.
There you go, the Resilience Project. If you haven't heard of it, Google it, look it up, get the app, and listen to what Hugh has to say, because it makes a whole lot of sense.